Hey guys, it's time for another Roto match. So we're going to be watching second match of round 4. This is going to be Yuuki with Mill against Scott with tokens. And Yuuki's 2-1, Scott is 1-2, so important match for these guys. 3-1 seems pretty likely to make the playoffs. So 1-3 seems pretty unlikely to make the playoffs, and then we seem to be on track to potentially have a large group of 2-2, depending on the outcome of this match. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to be watching this token deck. A lot of powerful cards, a lot of gold cards. Not the best mana based on what we've seen so far. And then I've got the mill deck. Mill decks look pretty good, I would say, on camera. They're all on camera, but on the in the matches that I've watched, I lost to it in the first round, and it lost to Hunter's aggressive deck, but it looks pretty good against some more mid-rangey strategies. It does seem to have fairly decent closing speed. See if the players should be starting momentarily. They've both joined the game, but they haven't hit that they're ready to start yet, so should be any minute now. It was definitely a relief to win my match earlier. Get back to 2-2. The new deck list looking a lot better. Actually being able to play spells, and that's been beneficial. I'm not exactly sure what we're waiting on here. Could make up more random stuff to talk about. They both loaded decks, so we're getting close, according to the chat. Yeah, I don't know. It's late. All right, it looks like we're here finally, which is good because I couldn't think of anything to say. So you've got Yuuki on the top and Scott on the bottom. And we get a look at the opening hands. It looks like Scott's only white mana is his Birds of Paradise, but otherwise his hand seems pretty reasonable. He's going to need second white to cat. Or never mind. He only needs one white for Advent. Yuki's got 3 lands, a cancel, a wall, Codex Shredder. His hand's fine. I think these are both going to be keeps. And I can tell you that Scott won the die roll, so he's going to be on the play. Deathray Shaman, perhaps not the greatest in this format. Not a lot of cards going to the graveyard, really. Especially since Carney got most of the dredge stuff. So he's going to lead with Deathray Shaman. That's pretty interesting. I guess he figures he's playing the Rot Farm next turn and he has no 2-drop, so he might as well get down the guy that can attack for 1, I think, is the reasoning. So yeah, I could see that. Usually you just kind of autopilot the birds out, but it's important to evaluate each hand. So we're about to see Codex Shredder from Yuuki. Draw here is Trial and Error. He's just casting Error to counter target multicolored spell. It's actually pretty strong in this format. Most of the good spells are multicolored. So here is the Shredder. Alright, so Scott's drawn Scion of V2 Ghazi, which is a very powerful card. He's not super close to casting it. Like I said, the mana in this deck's a little bit of an adventure sometimes. I'm seeing Scott get rewarded here, by the way, for playing the Deathrite Shaman. Every point of damage matters. He's going to play the Golgari Rot Farm, bounce the Forest, and presumably attack for 1. So there's no cards in the graveyard. So it's going to put Yuuki to 19. At the end of turn, he activates the Codex Shredder, and he's going to mill a Swamp. Okay, well that is a way to get your Deathrite Shaman going too. So that's actually very beneficial for Scott here. He's going to be able to access white mana, possibly by lands that get milled. Undercity Informer is the draw for Yuuki. Expect we're about to see a Murmuring Phantasm. Although I guess he could leave up Error too. That's probably actually better. Although Scott may just plan to cast this Advent of the Worm, which would put Yuki's mana to waste. Putrefy not great in this matchup, but it can kill a Codex Shredder. It can kill this guy, Balustrade Spy, or the Undercity Farmer. There's a few targets. The random upside of hitting artifacts is nice. So he actually can do several different things here. 4 mana. I think you just remembered his Advent of the Worm as an instant. No reason to cast it on at sorcery speed into open mana. Scott could also cast his Golgari Germination, which isn't terrible, but it's pretty slow. This is a matchup where you don't really want to be slow. Right, so he's tapping to Deathrite. Looks like he's oh, he's attacking. Okay, so Yuuki falls to 18. So looks like he is just going to leave up the Advent of the Worm. So he actually could have. Oh, and Codex Shredder hits Grove of the Guardian, so he's now got 2 mana from Deathrite. He could have gone white from Birds, white from Deathrite, and then 3, and cast the Scion this turn also. So he had a lot of options, but forcing Yuuki to keep mana up doesn't seem terrible. And here's going to be the end step Advent, which probably is going to get countered by Error. I don't think he's getting a better target for that. And that's exactly what happens. But this should allow Scott to untap and probably cast the Scion of V2 Ghazi. Picks up Twilight Drover. I haven't been too impressed by this card. It seems a little bit too slow. Alright, so he's going to use a Deathrite. Yep, just like we said, make some mana. Here comes the Scion of V2 Ghazi. It's going to resolve and make 2 1/1 flying bird tokens. So it's a pretty strong army in a can here for Scott. And he's pretty clearly getting ahead on board, which is pretty important to do against this mill deck because mill deck's very good at slowing the game out. I have an interesting bird token here. I'm not sure. Cockatrice That's a 3-mana 1/2 flyer from Arabian Nights. They don't make creatures. Creatures are a bit better than they used to be, let's say. Whispering Madness, the draw. Oh, if Yuuki just wants to pitch his hand, I guess he can cast this. It's actually pretty good here, but he has no way of knowing that. He also knows that Scott only has 2 lands. Right, he is taking 2 damage from his Water Grave, so I think he might just be casting Balustrade Spy. Yeah. So he's going to mill till he hits a land. This also will cut out the bird tokens. So mills Armada Worm and Orzhov Guildgate. Scott still at a pretty healthy 25 cards in his library. Scott could go for the Putrefy and then attack for 6, and then have Deathrite Shaman up to put him down to 8. So it's not bad. Just making the tempo play. So does Scott want to cast a Selesnya Signet, is the question. He can cast a Signet and the Putrefy. Then he won't be able to activate the Deathrite Shaman. His Ready and Willing is probably not great here. Oh, he can't fuse it. He's 1 mana short of fusing it, so he probably doesn't want that either. The Germination and the Twilight Drover just don't seem to do much. He could, I guess, cast a Germination and then attack. Oh no, it's when a non-token dies. Never mind. He's just going to lose the bird token. So that's pretty bad. He's going to do something. So this looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. He cast Twilight Drover. If he's going to do that, he should have cast a Signet, because he's got a mana floating. This costs 3, so you 1, 2, 3, 4. So he could have actually played the Signet. But now he's tapping the Deathrite. Oh, okay, so instead of casting a Signet, he's going to use Deathrite Shaman to deal 2 damage to his opponents. That's at least a more efficient use of mana. And now we're actually going to see Twilight Drover be good here. This is going to get a counter. When a token leaves the battlefield. So he's going to lose one of the birds. So he gets a counter next turn, he can make 2 more flying tokens. So that's pretty strong. For now, Twilight Drover's a 2/2. Codex Shredder is going to get a mill. It hits Trostani. Scott appears to be in the driver's seat here. Mind Grind, not great when you can only cast it for 2. Yeah, these just are pretty low impact plays here. Whispering Madness doesn't affect the board at all. His best play might just be to cast a Murmuring Phantasm, as bad as that sounds. He needs some way to block the 4/4. He's going to have to find a way to deal with all the flyers eventually. But this should at least keep him alive for a little while. And there's a Temple Garden for Scott, so now he should be able to make whatever mana he wants. He's probably going to want to activate the Twilight Drover, and then he should still have enough mana. So he has access to 6. He's got 4 from his lands, the birds, and the Deathrite Shaman still has 3 lands in the graveyard, so he's definitely fine. He's going to Putrefy the 0/5. I think that makes sense, actually. He can also just swing out and cast Willing. So it looks like it might be what he's going to do. The block's on the Twilight River, so he's probably going to use the 3 mana to make spirits. I guess he could cast Ready if he wants to save it, but it seems like the only value in this creature is making the 2 tokens. So I think he probably just wants to activate it and then let it die. I'd be happy to put your opponent to 4. I would also give him lethal, basically, with the Deathrite Shaman activation. Because he can eat his Putrefy and his Advent of the Worm. So there's 4 damage there also. So that puts Yuuki to 4. I will be right back. Okay, my bad. My washing machine was making some noise and I wanted to make sure my apartment wasn't about to flood. Thankfully, everything's okay. So it looks like you drew Consult the Necro Sages. Doesn't seem great here. Yeah, I think he's surveying, trying to find the worst of the best of his bad options. I think he might just want to cast Undercity Informer and then jump block. It's interesting that he just let the Twilight Driver die, but oh no, he did that because he can just activate Deathrite, put him to 2, untap, activate Deathrite. So I actually think that this game's just over. Sure seems that way. As far as I can tell. Alright, so he's going to cast Whispering Madness. So it's going to make each player discard their hand, then draw 4 cards. He can Cipher onto the Balustrade Spy. So he could do this twice, but he's... I mean, it looks like he's going to be well short. So he does Cipher. Both players discard their hands. Yeah, nothing too exciting here. Breaking, Entering, Drift of Phantasm, Swamp, Swamp. Scott actually picks up the Unflinching Courage that even further would put it away, but Deathrite Shaman by himself should do it. He's got multiple paths to victory. You consult the Necrosages, gets exiled. Yuuki goes to 2. And the game's over. That is 1-0 to Scott. And I'll momentarily here take a look at the sideboard options. Here's Scott's deck. So he has some Brawn. He's got this Loxodon, the Ghost Council. And then, this is an old list, by the way. It's like the Putrefy got moved to the main deck. He wasn't cheating there. That was, I forgot to update the slides for today. But nobody made any huge changes. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else he's going to want here. Maybe Reborn Defenses, but Yuuki really only has one for one removal spells. He's not sweeping the board, really. Let's see what Yuuki has. I think I like the Grizzly Spectacle. So I kind of want to see him just board in Pack Rat and kill his opponent with Pack Rat one game. Like, you just might get them. Pack Rat's pretty busted. It's weird that it hasn't been. I don't think we've seen it at all yet. Other than that, I think he's just going to want to slow things down. Far and Away is really good because you basically can get multiple. You can bounce something and. Or you can bounce a token, like if he plays Advent of the Worm, you can just kill it. Or you could also kill something and make them sack, so you get a 2 for 1. And you don't see like a ton of changes here. You could bring in the Consuming Aberration, just because that's like a different way to win. Also, you can get through a clogged board. I don't think either player's strategy is changing too much here. All right, we're about to start game 2. And we'll look at the opening hands. Scott draws a Leyline of Life Force. Creature spells can't be countered, so he boarded that in. That's pretty good. He's got a Convolute and an Dimir Charmantly counter sorceries. The players have lands and spells, so they're probably going to keep. There's a Leyline of Life Force. So Yuuki leads with an island. Scott boarded in Sundering Grove. Values blowing up the Codex Shredder, I guess. Be interesting to see if he fires off the Selesnya Charm for a Night token. He has multiple ways to populate in his hand. He's got a Wayfaring Temple and the Sundering Grove. He also has the Grove of the Guardian, which is much more a much bigger payoff if you could populate that. Here comes Lore Broker. But it takes until turn 6 to get this out, so I don't know if he can sit around for quite that long. Alright, well, Advent of the Worm, on the other hand, that makes things a little more interesting. He's main phasing the charm. Okay, so he definitely wants a Knight, and this is actually a good cast in the main phase for 2 reasons. One, your opponent's not attacking you, so you don't need to flash in a blocker like you do sometimes with this card. And of course, the opponent's tapped out. You also know that your creatures can't be countered, so he's probably going to snap off any opportunity to counter a non-creature spell. So that's that is good sequencing here. We've got a 2/2 Night token with Vigilance. Probably be followed up by the Wayfaring Temple next turn. See what Yuuki draws. I feel like you would leave up Convolute here, but when your opponent's creatures can't be countered, you might not bother. He could also use Dimir Charm on the Night token, but I think he probably would want to wait for, see if he can get a better target like a Tristani or a Wayfaring Temple if it comes down as a 2/2. Yeah, so Yuuki does nothing, and Scott draws Call of the Conclave. Yeah, interesting options here. He could cast Call of the Conclave, probably get countered, or he could cast Wayfaring Temple, which probably get Dimir Charmed. So he probably has to feel like bait is happening here. He's gonna maybe cast a spell he doesn't want as much. Alright, so it looks like he went to combat, and now Dimir Charm is going to take out the Knight. This is a problem if there's a pump spell making the Knight greater than 2 power, and then this Dimir Charm does not do anything. So he's going to respond by casting Ready to make the Knight indestructible. I guess that's fine. I'm not like that thrilled about really having to make either play. Like having to Dimir Charm on the Knight's not the greatest thing, and then just saving your 2/2 is probably not the greatest thing either. But it's not like they had a ton of other options. Swamp's a good draw for Scott. He now has all of his colors. And Yuuki draws his Bob. Alright, so yeah, Yuuki discarded Convolute. And Scott discarded the Sundering Grave. He said not a lot of targets. You can't just cast it just to populate. Like, you have to actually have a target for it. He doesn't want to kill his own leyline, so that makes sense. Jace, Architect of Thought, came in from the sideboard. Seems like a pretty strong card in this spot. You can shrink down the Knight. I like the art from the original better than the promo one. But they both do the same thing. All right. So Jace comes down. Yeah, I think he's probably going to tick it up. If you take it down, you do get immediate value, but then you either are going to lose it, or you're going to lose either your Jace or your Lore Broker. Whereas if he puts it up to 5, which it looks like what he did, he can potentially prepare for better next turn. And Scott draws another land. He awkwardly cannot cast Advent of the Worms. He does not have double green. There's actually not a ton that he can do here. And the Knight's going to get shrunk, so it can't attack through the Lore Broker. Yeah, really not a great play here. Either way. I think I like casting the Wayfaring Temple here, but it's debatable. It looks like what he goes with, because then next turn you can play Call of the Conclave and attack for 3, and then threaten to populate the Centaur. Whereas if you do it the other way, you can't obviously you can't attack with the Wayfaring Temple if it's not in play. So I think I like this. I like how Scott's played this game, actually. Even though he's, doesn't look to be way ahead or anything. Probably gonna discard this Plains. Oh, Yuuki drew and discarded cancel. And now he has Dimir Guildgate. So he has double black. He cannot cast 2 spells this turn, though. He'll be able to next turn. So he's probably going to hold the Hover Barrier. Alright, yeah, makes sense. So he's going to play Bob, play the Guildgate. Next turn he can cast Breaking and Hover Barrier. He uses mana efficiently. He could have... The other thing he could have done was... I think ticking up Jace is not as appealing. He could have ticked down Jace and then found an untapped land and cast the Hover Barrier. I actually think that might have been better. Because now, if Scott does anything, he can still get in with the Wayfaring Temple. It's going to be a 2-3. Actually, could be a 3-4 if he plays the... Oh no, he can't play the Call of Conclave and the Birds, as we just talked about that. That's actually pretty punishing, because he wants to cast his Birds so that he can activate Grove of the Guardian next turn. But he also wants to call the Conclave so he can populate a better creature. So which one is more important is the question. I think I might actually cast the Birds. And that's what Scott does. Doesn't feel very intuitive. Now, so Wayfaring Temple becomes a 3-3. Then it attacks. It becomes a 2-3. Scott, or Yuuki could double block. He would only lose one of his creatures because he's got 3 toughness. So it actually may not be that good of an attack. Although you may just want to trade your Wayfaring Temple for Bob anyway. Yeah, I think this is a close judgment call here. Okay, so he's going to attack. Jace triggers. Oh, he's attacking Jace. Well, that's interesting. Now you don't even get to populate. He's still going to block. See, I think once it's going at Jace, you just let Jace take 2 damage. If he had attacked Yuuki, then you don't want him to populate. So Yuuki draws and discards a land. Scott draws the Selesnya Signet, which would have been a good draw off the top. But I don't think it's actually a good draw here because it doesn't enable him to cast anything extra. I think he might just discard it anyway, because if he can discard, like he can cast a Signet and then cast the remaining spell, but it's not really worth it. Like next turn he can just cast both anyway. Oh, that's actually not true again because of double green. But yeah, so I might want to Grove. So I don't think he needs a Signet. Well, this gives Yuuki a chance to see a lot of cards this turn. Alright, so Undercity Informer gets revealed to Bob, so it's going to deal 3 damage to him. And he drops a 15. So he's going to get a card from his draw step, and then he may get to see 3 cards with Jace. He drew Far and Away for his draw step. that Far could potentially be really good against the Worm token. Yeah, I think he's kind of in the tank here. I might just cast Breaking, cast Hover Barrier, and pass. Yeah, that might be what he does. He takes up Jace. If he ultimates Jace, I wonder what he's going to go get. So he can get Armada Worm or something. I'm not sure if that's game winning or not. Three mana. Hover Barrier. He could leave up Far. Guess that's a good it's a good hedge. Right, Temple Garden. Temple Garden enables both of these spells to be cast. Which still doesn't get the Wayfaring Temple large enough to get through the Hover Barrier. I'm getting a little sleepy. Sorry, guys. It's almost 10 p.m. on Sunday. I need to go to sleep after this is over. Alright, so Scott is finally casting something. I don't know why he tapped Temple Garden to do it. Call of the Conclave. So he's going to make a Centaur. I wonder if he was just supposed to go for Grove of the Guardian there. This makes an 8-8 with Vigilance. Yeah. Although I was just going to get bounced. Alright, we've got a Centaur. This way, at the very least, the Advent will probably draw out the bounce. And or, well, I don't know. It might not. I mean, he knows about Grove the Guardian. And the Worm still can't get through the Hover Barrier. So I wonder how... Yeah, Jace actually is a real threat to go ultimate here. Based on how slow these guys are playing, let's take a quick look at the deck list again and see what is there to... he could cast Zodek, Lord of Secrets for free. That'd probably end the game pretty fast. Don't see a ton of other great things, but you only need one. Oops. Let's look at my deck. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I just got an Armada Worm. Maybe the Worm Weaver Coil will be good, but you can't really... There's no like big flying creature to go cast, it looks like. Okay. Well, now we know. Zodek's probably the main draw then. Don't think we've missed anything. Nope. Still in first main phase. is a main phase admin of the worm, it looks like. I'm not sure what this accomplishes. It makes the Wayfaring Temple larger, but still not large enough. He probably threatened a good attack next turn, though. We've got a worm, a centaur, a knight, and a Wayfaring Temple, and a bird's paradise. Interesting crew of attackers here. Yeah, I don't think this attack accomplishes anything, because the knight's just going to get shrunk. He can take 1 damage. Like, yeah, Hover Barrier is going to get in the way of Wayfaring Temple. Yuuki took 1 damage from something, and I'm not sure what it was. Oh, the knight was probably attacking. We just can't see because it's vigilant. Botflips of Night Veil Spectre. It's another 3 damage. I think he put his life total 2-3 instead of taking 3. They'll probably fix that. There we go. We're at 11. Alright, so draws Drift of Phantasms. Yeah, I think his plan here is just to play blockers, ultimate Jace, and cast like a Zodek and an Armada Worm and win that way. Nope, he's minusing Jace. Shows how much I know. He might just take a pile of lands here. Mirko Vosk, Mind Grind, does not have the option. Doorkeeper. I think, so we'll have to see how Scott wants to pile this. I think he isn't too scared of the Doorkeeper. Mirko Vosk probably ends the game the fastest. None of these are great, really. Looks like Esper Tokens won the Star City Standard Open this week. That's pretty cool. Alright, so Mirko Vosk by himself. Jilliset made top 4 with 5-colored Bring to Light. Also pretty neat. Let's play all the good cards. Siege Rhino, Jace. 4 Abzan Charm. Treasure Cruise, Crackling Doom. Just play everything. There's an Anafenza on the sideboard. Alright, so it looks like Mirko Vosk goes to the hand, but Yuuki chooses not to cast it. Instead, he's leaving it far and away. This is an interesting stare down, actually, because we know that Grove of the Guardian could get activated. It's also noteworthy that Jace did not tick up, so the creatures are not going to shrink when they attack. So we think he can actually finally get the Wayfaring Temple in as a 6/6. He's going to tap the bird in the night, sack the grove, make an 8/8. He can attack with the temple, the centaur, and the worm, and he's going to get some damage across and not lose anybody. Although we know that this far and away is very likely coming here. I've got a 7/7 elemental as my 8/8 elemental. I don't know how Cockatrice does tokens. Alright, here come the 3 guys I mentioned. So this is worth some amount of damage here. Far and away. So we're gonna bounce the 8/8. So it's gonna make Wayfaring Temple down into a 5/5. So you can block Wayfaring Temple with Hover Barrier. Probably still taking 8 damage though. So I imagine Birds of Paradise is gonna get sacked. I think Yuuki's in some trouble here. Unless, like, maybe all these guys are attacking Jace or something, and then it's not quite as bad. Bob's going to chump block the Wayfaring Temple, and that's going to make Yuuki not lose as much life. He does take 3, so he drops to 8. He's cleaned the board up a little bit. He's going to need to have a good turn, though. He's probably going to get the Jace -2 again. He draws a Swamp. It lets him cast 2 3-drops if that's how he wants to go about taking his turn. He's got 3 of them. He's got Drift of Phantasms, Undercity Informer, and Night Veil Spectre all in hand. Alright, so he minuses Jace first. So we've got Swamp, Balustrade Spy, Crypt Incursion. That could be pretty good. Crypt Incursion. How many creatures are in Scott's graveyard? 1. Okay, might not be very good. 1. Oh, Yuki's graveyard. Only 2. Okay, so this is only a gain 6 life. Not as good as I thought it was going to be when I saw 9 cards in a graveyard. But a lot of Scott's creatures are actually sorceries that make creature tokens. It's been a long match. Not moving super quickly. Kind of turned into a grind here. Yuki's pretty clearly taken on the control role in this. So he's got all these cards in hand. And he has to not die to what's on the board. Alright, so it looks like Balustrade Spy is on its own. And yet, Yuuki wants the Crypt Incursion, which makes sense. So he plays a 6th land. You don't think casting Murkovosk is the answer? He's only a 2/4. I think I might cast a Drift of Phantasms and one of these guys. Or you could just cast Drift of Phantasms, leave up Crypt Incursion. They'll definitely get you to the next turn, I would think. Alright, here is Drift of Phantasms. I think you might be taking the line that I suggested. Scott's still at a virtual 15 cards in his library. Breaking will get 8 of them, but there's not much else from Mill. And okay, so he's going to cast Night Veil Spectre. Scott draws a Deathrite Shaman. That's a thing. It's going to put pressure on life totals. Strangely taps the swamp for it when he has 3 green sources, but I guess it doesn't really matter. He has no cards in hand. Wayfaring Temple is going to go back to being 5/5. Are there any good attacks here? If he attacks with Wayfaring Temple, Centaur, and Worm, he can get across for 3. So he may just aim the 3 at Jace and be like, either lose your Night Veil Spectre or lose your Jace. It seems better than doing nothing, because he can't lose any creatures in this attack, and he can't block the Night Veil Spectre. So yeah, I think this is a good attack here. Oh, I actually missed something. This is even a better attack than I thought. There's 2 5-power creatures and only 1 6 toughness blocker. Looks like Yuuki got disconnected. I'm going to pause the video, because it may be a while till he gets back, and it's been going pretty long anyway, because these have been long turns. We'll be back momentarily. Alright, so it looks like we've reconnected successfully. Did not have to... I took a bunch of screenshots to see if they could like reconstruct the game if they had to start over, but thankfully they don't. So we have Wayfaring Temple, Worm, and Centaur attacking. We don't know who they're attacking. I presume they're attacking Yuuki, because he didn't point any arrows at Jace. What I started to say before the disconnection is that this is actually a much better attack than I thought, because there's only 1 free block, basically. So he can put the Hover Barrier on anything, but then the Drift of Phantasms and the Night Veil Spectre, neither one of them can block the second 5-power creature. And obviously the threat of populating is very real here. And also the threat of Deathrite Shaman is very real. I think Yuuki may, though, just throw something under the bus and then gain 3 life again with the Crypt Incursion next turn. Looks like Hover Barrier is on Wayfaring Temple, which makes sense because you don't want to let him populate. Definitely can't take all this damage. Okay, the Drift of Phantasm is going on the Centaur. Yeah, I think he may just throw Night Veil Spectre under the bus here. If he takes this, he goes to 3. He can Crypt Incursion back to 9. Still not great. Okay, now what? Now Hover Barrier is on the Worm. We're starting over. Hover Barrier is on the Worm. This makes more sense if you're going to do it that way, because then Wayfaring Temple does not trample. So this way he just loses Night Veil Spectre and takes no damage. And again, he can gain an extra 3 life with a Crypt Incursion. Okay, so he draws Dimir Aqueduct. Does not seem particularly useful here. The question becomes, how does he want to spend his mana this turn? So if he wants to spend 7 mana this turn, he's going to need to put the swamp into play, which is what he did. Alright, so now finally going to cast Breaking. This also could, if it mills a bunch of creatures, it could make the Crypt Incursion better. This is target player. Alright, so we got an Abzan, a Scion, a Voice of Resurgence. We milled 3 creatures, Worm Reaver, Coil, Growing Ranks, and 3 lands. So now Oh, they got revealed and didn't make it to the graveyard. Okay, there we go. So there's going to end up being 4 creatures in the graveyard. So it's going to make the Crypt Incursion worth 12 life and put Yuuki back up to 20. We got 4 creatures. Yeah, I think Yuki's done a good job navigating through this game here. He may want to cast a Crypt Incursion now, because now Scott can use a Deathrite Shaman to exile a creature in response if he wants to prevent the gaining of 3 life. Unflinching Courage is the draw. That could be pretty big, actually, if he slaps it on the Wayfaring Temple. Does he have 2 big tramplers? This has been a pretty interesting back and forth game, if not for it has gone kind of slowly. But, so Wayfaring Temple is going to be a 7/7 trampler now. So that means, okay, it's going to be a 6/7 because Jace went up last turn. But Hover Barrier would have to sacrifice itself to prevent a worm from getting populated here. I'll mention here again that Scott won the first game. It has been a while since the first game. Also, the Knight gets a free attack in here because there's now 0 power on the other side. It's only for 1 though. Alright, so this does not look great for Yuuki. That was actually a huge draw on Unflinching Courage. I didn't realize how good it was. This is Wayfaring Temple is a huge threat now. So now he can gain 9 life with the Crypt Incursion, but not 12 if the Deathrite gets activated in response. He's not going to die this turn, but the board's starting to get out of control, I think. He's either going to have to take 8 damage or double block and lose the Hover Barrier. None of these things seem great. I'm still thinking about how to block. I think I've made my my line clear. Or not my line, but the options. None of them seem too good. Yeah, I think he might block. So it doesn't seem great though. He's gonna lose both guys. Oh no, the worm's a 4/5 because of Jace. Okay, so this is actually fine. So he can block here. He can block here. Take 0. He's gonna lose the Hover Barrier, but he'll only take 2 damage. He can Crypt Incursion to gain some more, and then hope to mill him out with Undercity Informer, I guess. You don't think? I mean, I don't think you can just take this. Allowing another 5/5 is rough. Alright, so he's gonna block. He's gonna make the safe block, so he's gonna Crypt Incursion. Yeah, I think Scott has nothing to lose here by activating the Deathrite Shaman, because he'll gain 2, not super relevant, but he'll basically, he can deal 2 or prevent Yuuki from gaining 3. So yeah. Oh, he didn't do it though. Alright, so Yuuki's gonna go up to 20, take 6, go down to 14. Scott's gonna get to populate, I think, is how this is all gonna turn out. That was close. We got Yuuki at 13. That was off by 1 somewhere. Worm. Wayfaring Temple gets bigger. I think if Yuuki can draw Glimpse the Unthinkable, he'll get there. Alright, the lifelink too, so Yuuki's not going to damage anyway. Alright, another land. And the Steelers are lighting up the Colts right now. So he minus his Jace, which I think was the right thing to do, but I don't think it's going to get there. I guess he could get another 0-5, soak up some worm damage. He really needed a removal spell, I think, to get rid of the Wayfaring Temple. Alright, so he gets, excuse me, the Phantasm. He's going to play a Swamp. You think I would cast... the worms have trample now. So you could cast Phantasm, cast Undercity Informer, and just start trying to mill him out. You could cast Murmuring Phantasm and cast Mirko Vosk. He has enough mana for that, right? He does. And then make the safest blocks you can. If that lets you survive, maybe you can mill him out next turn. Not sure how many lands he has left. He's got 5 in his graveyard, 6 in play. So there's still 6 lands out of 13 cards in the deck. So I may not get there either, actually. Almost certainly won't get there. So Phantasm comes down. I think he's going to cast Mirko Vosk. I could see him winning still. He might be able to get there if he can soak up enough damage. Deathrite needs to do something here. Didn't. We drew Seize the Soul. Destroy target non-white, non-black creature. Make a spirit. So he can shoot. Nope, he can't. Oh no, he can cast this, but he has to use his Deathrite to make black because the bird is dead. So if he kills the hover barrier, what does that do for him? If nothing else, it lets him block Mirko Vosk, which seems really big, actually. Right, so he exiles the plains. So he's going to cast Seize the Soul. I assume on the hover barrier, because you can't target Mirko Voss, because it's black. So I'll hit the best wall. And then you get to make a spirit. Very close game. Alright, he does kill the hover barrier. He's going to get a 1-1. Or he's haunting the Drift of Phantasms, which makes sense, because it's probably going to have to block. So he can attack with definitely the temple, both worms. Maybe we have a spirit that's actually a spirit. We got there. Yeah, the Wayfaring Temple, the Centaur, both worms, for sure. The Knight could get eaten by Merkavosk, but then these other things have to block. Yeah, I think you still end up pretty good. You probably just swing with everything. Leave the spirit back to block Merkavosk. Looks like he's just going with the worms. Oh no, there's a Centaur. Yeah, you might need the Knight back. It probably doesn't matter too much. And now, math. Alright, we'll try to do some math here. The Wayfaring Temple is a 9-9 with trample. The worms are 5-5. So it's 19 trample damage. He does have 14 toughness. So he blocked all of it. He would take 5, 6, 7, 8. So he can survive. Can he survive for any amount of value? Probably not. And he probably just has to put Merkavosk on Centaur. Yeah, okay. So I think his line is block, put Merkavosk on the Centaur, put the O5s on the worms, and then hope to draw a removal spell, kill the spirit, attack with Merkavosk, and mill that. If there's 6 lands left, you can mill 4 of them with Merkavosk, and then the last 2 with Undercity Informer, and then hope that there's a land on the bottom when you win, I think. It's complicated. You could, yeah, well, if you draw a creature, then you have enough for sure, because this sucks to itself. I don't know if he has a creature. He could draw Grizzly Spectacle. I think that would do it. Because there's 6 lands left to mill, I think. Let's check that again. 4. Okay. He's making the block I suggested. Alright, so there's 5 lands in graveyard or exile. 6 in place. There's 6 left in the deck. So if he can draw Grizzly Spectacle, he can kill the spirit, hit 1 land, then attack a Merkavosk, hit 4 more. There's 1 land left. Then he can play the Undercity Informer, and he is 1 mana short of activating it twice. So close. I'm trying, guys. I'm trying. He could just draw Glimpse the Unthinkable. That would do it. He's going to have several shots at it, I think. Populate. Yuuki goes to 2. Well, I am confident this game is going to end very soon. I can say that. Alright, so he's got to draw and then 3 cards with Jace. So I have to find something. Oh, and we got there. This is going to bin Jace. Rogue's Passage does it too. It just makes this unblockable. It mills for at least 4. And then he can cast Glun. So I believe we're going to go to game 3. To the dismay of my sleep schedule. So there's Rogue's Passage. Glimpse the Unthinkable. We put him down to 2, and then, yeah, this game's over. I am hungry, so I'll be right back. Alright, in hindsight, I probably should have closed the video. Or paused the video. Looks like both players have taken a mulligan to 6. Scott has Wayfaring Temple and lands. Yuki's hand seems a bit better, although he really has no way to control the board. So he might have to transmute Metal the Mixture for something. So, not the best. Excuse me. I think both players are scrying, but I'm not positive. It doesn't say too clearly in the chat. Scott went to 5. I think he has to keep this. She's got voice, call the conclave. He doesn't have white. It looks like Yuuki is keeping his 6, which I think is completely reasonable. He's going to need a wall or something, but he's got 2 mill sources. Alright, so Scott, I think Scott kept, which is good, because if he doesn't drop planes, we're not really going to play Magic. The trial and error could be relevant. If Scott misses on the second land here, all of his spells are multicolored. Alright, turn 1, Codex Shredder. Alright, so it's an Orzhov Guildgate, which is good in general, but the way the specific hand lines up probably isn't. Swamp gets milled. Hover Barrier is a draw, so I think Yuki's hand is coming together here. So he's probably gonna... He might just play Watery Grave untapped and leave up Error. Or Cast Glimpse. Although he could just play a tapped and assume that his 06 can block whatever is coming here. Which is true. Selesnya is Signet. That's actually pretty good. So he can cast Signet and Voice. Oh, he did pay the 2 life, the Lance untapped. Alright, so he's just going for Call of the Conclave, which is kind of interesting. It seemed like, oh, it was Muddle the Mixture. Counter target instant or sorcery. Card not super often cast for its actual text. It seemed like the Signet was a freebie there. I think he could have just played the Signet. Maybe he was afraid of getting the Signet countered. The cover barrier might be incoming. Nope, he's going to be patient. He's going to leave up Error. If he draws a black source, he can Glimpse and leave up Error. And Error's possibly going to get a voice here. And disciplined play by Yuuki here, understanding his role. There's the Signet. Knowing he just has to bleed out the double mulligan here. Murmuring Phantasm. That's pretty good. For him, he can cast Glimpse and Phantasm. It's not in a hurry to cast Glimpse. I guess there's really no need to. Another land for Scott's hand just not pan out. Both of his damage sources got countered. Alright, now he's going to cast Glimpse. And I assume the Hover Barrier. Let's see what got milled. That's all of them. Here, I'll read them off the chat. Leyline of Life Force, Golgari Rot Farm, Wayfaring Temple, Putrefy, Sundering Growth, Unflinching Courage, Sign of Vitu-Ghazi, Plains, Advent of the Worm, Leyline of the Meek. That's what got milled. And then a Forest by the Codex Shredder at the end of the turn. Growing ranks. Not great right now. This got down to 14 cards. It's basically 7 cards with the Codex Shredder. Lore Broker. Well, that's going to speed the clock up even more. Well, there's a Loxodon Smiter, but it's still not particularly great. If he can hit another creature, maybe he could still start populating the Grove tokens and have a chance. But he's pretty under the gun here between the Codex Shredder and the Lore Broker. It's going to be only about 4 turns until the game ends. Oh, and he drew far and away. Never mind. This is Abzan Ghost Council. Oh, that's a fine draw. I don't think it's enough, though. Yuuki could far and away bouncing the Smiter and then making the Abzan get sacrificed if he's afraid of it recurring each turn. Scott possibly contemplating the use of Ready and Willing to try to plow through the Murmuring Phantasm. I'm not sure exactly what he's thinking about, but I'm sorry for all this downtime. I just don't know what to say. Like, there's only 2 things he can do. Neither of them are too great. I think you cast Abzan. I think that's more likely to work. We know it's not going to, but Achilles threatens some pressure. Alright, yeah, so now, like I was saying, I think far and away is going to happen here. So it's going to bounce the Smiter and then make him sack Abzan to get rid of it permanently. And then he should also activate his Codex Shredder and his Lore Broker. Which he does. Marauder Worm's not a bad draw. I don't know. I still don't think there's quite enough time. Yuuki discards Rogue's Passage. I'm not sure if Scott discarded anything. Might have missed it. I thought the only card in his hand was Ready and Willing. this convolute is probably going to finish off the game here. Convolute is going to counter Armada Worm. And I think that just about should do it. I can't think of any sequences here. Tristani gets milled, Lord Broker essentially mills the planes. Yeah, Scott only has one more turn. He's going to have to deal 16 damage with just a 4/4 in play. Drift of Phantasms, because why not? Make more walls. And Scott draws a land. Attack with Smiter, because what? I assume he'll cast ready and will he? Might as well cast both halves of it, right? And get that lifeline. I guess he doesn't need to make it indestructible, actually. So he's just getting a Death Touch lifeline. Immaterial. Lore Broker, Codex Shredder. Mill 2 cards. Yuuki untaps. He's going to activate those cards again, and that's going to be the end of the match. Very long match, and possibly over an hour and a half. It might be the longest match we've ever had in Rotisserie Draft, actually. I can't think of another marathon quite like that one, but anyway. Good. Game 2 was quite detailed, I thought, so pretty good overall, and was getting tired there. Sorry, commentary. I don't think the commentary was that bad, but like it was kind of maybe disjointed at times, but I'll try to do better next time. And we'll look for we'll be recording some more matches soon, and have a good night.